Cheers.
Mm.
Hello, Graham.
Hello, Faith. Good to see you.
And welcome back, everybody, to Tea at 3.
Yeah. Got mine too.
So last week, I brought up the idea of going vegetarian for me. And what that was really for me is something that I could be control of, a change that I can make in my life that helps lessen my anxiety about the future. It's something that I feel like can make a positive impact in the world. And it's something that I feel like humanity will need to do more and more moving forward. And if I can't see myself doing that, I can't see anybody else doing that in the future. So I made that decision for myself. So I'm curious, Graham, what have you been thinking about that this week?
Well, I mean, first of all, you reignited the fuse of my life. When I was your age, I got to be a very interesting advanced leader on this issue. I was concerned about the future of the world, and I didn't know whether it could last as long as I might. And so I think I understand a little bit what you're saying now. But do you know, for me, I had to go back to this elusive metaphor of mine of being in the car. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to revisit that. Then we can leave it alone, more or less. But my car has morphed over the week into an RV. And it's a sufficient size so that I could have 4 people join me. So there'd be 6 of us all together in the RV so that I could actually have a meal in the RV. We used to do that. Trina and I were actually on the road for 42,000 miles over a 2-year period. And we never went back to a house during that time. We rented out our house to somebody else. So our entire lifestyle, everything that represented us, traveled with us. And that's why I put this on the wall behind me. This is a map of the United States, and that's the 42,000 miles that we did. So you could call that a journey. Now, you see, I have a lifestyle which is like that RV, except that it doesn't move. But if you could see it as the metaphor, this apartment that I have here, I could get 4 people in here just at a squeeze, and we could sit and we could have a meal. But it's not going anywhere, but I am. My life is unfolding mile by mile, day by day, down this thing called life. And I'm expecting my life to conclude somewhere around about 10 years from now. Really different from yours with the 60 plus years that you've got. So I'm really, when I see people planning for 2050, that I sort of say, I'm gone. But it doesn't mean that I'm not interested, because I want to know and I want to take up my route. I want to try and practice what I did here. I want to spend the next 60 years vicariously through you. I want to understand what you're seeing as that road ahead. Although mine terminates, yours goes on. And I'm very concerned about you. The more I get to know you, the more I like you, and the more I want a better future for you, okay? So I want to do whatever I can when I have a voice now to help to make that future a better one for you and for my grandkids and great-grandkids as well, if that makes sense. So what I've done, instead of simply parking my car, my lifestyle, at the obstacle on the mountain, I turned the thing around and went back down I-90. So you go down I-90, you turn right onto I-5 again, go up until you get to Everett, and then you make a right on Route 2. So Route 2 is going to go over the same mountain range of the Cascades that I would do on I-90, which has now been blocked. But now there's a different way that I can go over the mountain. This is my life. So I'm going to have to go over a mountain, but I don't have to travel on a multi-lane highway with all the trucks and everything else. I can go in a quieter route, which actually goes down to a two-way road at one stage, and then peters out when it gets to the end of Washington. So it's another way for me to get to journey my life with everything that I have. I want to make sure that that's the best journey I can have for me, and that it doesn't put other people at risk when I do that. And it's the sort of thing where I could have friends to come in and enjoy that life with me like I do here. They're part of the journey now. Is anything not clear on that one? Because I don't want our friends at home to say, oh God, there he goes again.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Because the thing that was the tipping point for me in making small but difficult decisions that I think will make a positive impact, the things that are tipping points for those for me are this like big weight of the future, and that like 60 years is a bigger weight of future in me making those decisions, where like your weight is only 10 years on you. And so you're adding like the people around you, you're adding their weight onto you to like help you make those decisions, and using empathy and like spreading love. And
I think that's hugely important, what you just said. It's spreading love. You know, I was born for such a time as this, which is 60 years in front of you. I'm like a point person on a patrol going through a jungle. I've encountered a few things in my life already, which I know are going to encounter some things somewhat like that, but not really. I think things are changing to such an extent that I can hardly get my mind around what you may be facing, you know, in the future. But at least whatever experience I've got, I want it to be a better pathway for you. I do. And that love factor is, if we do love and care for each other, the empathy factor, we like that to be a better road, a better thing. And for me, the broad highway that is spiritually described as a highway that leads to destruction, which is what I see at the present moment, having been really attentive to this over the years. I want to find that narrower pathway that leads to life, right? And I think it can be found, and I think it can be traveled on. So let's get to what you said last time, you know, to move from beef into plant food. And that was your basic, you know, criteria. And I agreed with you. I said, I haven't eaten beef for 2 or 3 years. I had lamb once. So I dove into that one. I jumped in, boots and all, to be able to see what's going on. The very first thing I did, I stopped eating meat. That very next meal, after we got through with our conversation last week, I stopped eating meat. So I thought to myself, as I ponder this over the week, I'm going to ponder it on purpose, in a practical way, by not eating. And I actually made a sandwich for myself with very crisp cabbage. You know how crisp that cabbage can be? And I put these slices of cabbage with a nice sauce over the top of it, rammed the 2 pieces of bread together, and it crunched beautifully. And there was lots of texture in my mouth as a result of it. I didn't miss having the sliced turkey. I sat there and I thought to myself, I'm not missing it. I am not missing it. Then I've had meal after meal that I haven't missed. And so that was number one. So is this a big sacrifice for me? And I understand it could be for somebody who is a big red meat eater. But just for me, it wasn't too bad. And then I've jumped in, and I don't want to monopolize, but I can't tell. I've had the most wonderful confirming wheat that what you suggested is exactly right for me. I can do this. I can do
That's
it.
so great. That's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you so much for bringing me back on track again, because I'd simply veered off that track a little bit. And I hadn't really realized to the degree that it meant so much to me. And so I'm restored and enthusiastic about it now. How about you? What did you, I know it was your idea, so therefore you'd already pre-pondered it, but did anything else come up during the week for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of what I've been thinking about this week is how much easier this decision is now than I think it ever has been. Like, let's say 5-8 years ago or so, if you made the decision to be vegetarian, I feel like there was so much more intentionality that you had to have in making sure that you got all the right proteins from the right foods, and like did a lot more of crafting that for yourself. And because it's become so much more widespread now, it's so much easier to just go to the store and buy, like, for example, I buy this thing called soy rizo, which is like a chorizo spice mix but with soy protein. And
Yes.
that's something that I know like has protein and nutrients in it that I can just go to the store and buy and eat, cook up and eat. And there are only more and more things like that available to people now. So it's great to see something that I can be a part of, that I can see is growing, that could give me hope by doing it myself, but also gives me hope seeing it become more of a thing.
Yes. Yeah. Has this present day virus thing, has that had any impact upon you as you've been thinking about this?
For me, I live on a fairly small budget because um of the I want the work that I do to be extremely meaningful, and sometimes that means not having a bigger income. So I have not, in the last year, have not been someone who goes out to a restaurant all the time. And that's, I think, where those decisions are more in your face. Like, I have been buying and cooking my own food for a while because that's the cheaper thing to do in general.
Yes.
So I don't think that this specific situation has made much of a difference for me personally.
It did for me this week for two reasons. One, part of my research that I wanted to do to get up to date was that the Lancet magazine did a special conference. They developed a panel of experts from around the world to look at this business of how we eat and what that means to our health and what that means to the health of the planet. And so they call it Lancet Eat. And by the time you look at it, you can see that what I eat and what a farmer farms and the way that he farms it. And when we put these two things together so that nature is resilient and so am I resilient, all of a sudden the planet is resilient. There is a real possibility for the future of mankind. So please, this magnificent piece of work which has been done blends this great way of eating, which is minuscule in terms of meat, proteins, and dairy, etc. But it's there, because it's part of our life, and we shouldn't just say like this and don't eat those sort of things. If we do that, we turn our decision into a spiritual decision where somebody else is wrong. And I don't think that we can say that they're wrong. I think that we can say that the choices that I'm making appear to be right for me. And so that's my choice that I don't want to have to lower onto somebody else. Right? So that's really what I learned from that. And I felt so certain about that one that I took what meat that I did have, because I can't throw it away. I just couldn't do that. I just
Yeah,
froze it.
absolutely.
So I'm now, my ordering for the future is entirely restructured around the whole idea of plant food, which I really am thrilled about. So thank you so much for raising that thing.
So for me, I think part of my next steps in this is I think it's a harder step once you go from eating meat all the time to not eating meat. It's for that initial step for me was very hard to then think about also eliminating cheese. I haven't had milk in a couple years because my body just stopped being able to process it. So, but
oh, really? Yeah.
cheese is one of the really hard ones to get rid of. And so for this past Lent, I gave up cheese just in order to be able to conceptualize like not like the alternatives to it, I guess.
Yes.
A lot of times if you just add more salt, it's about the same thing. Like what you're actually craving in that is, I think, the salt flavor. But there, I mean, you can like mix potatoes and carrots and make this, and like jalapenos and stuff, and make a good like nacho cheese sauce. And like there's a lot of things with cashews, and there's it was fun to have that 40-day experiment to just see what it's like also without dairy entirely, without meat, without animal products.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's largely still like something that's a hard decision to keep making because cheese is so good.
You know what I've done in this? I have a thing called velvet sauce, and I use either sweet potatoes or parsnips as a good example. Peas can be done, and beans as well. And what you do is you get the ratio is this: it's 1 pound of actually cooked weight, so that you would very tenderly steam sweet potatoes or parsnips until they're really, really soft. And then you weigh 1 pound of that, put it into a blender, and put 1 10-ounce can of evaporated skim milk. I don't know whether you can take that now that when you've told me, but pour that into that parsnip mix. Switch the blender on and run it for 4 minutes. And it really does take that long. It's very noisy, but during that time, the plant cellulose and the proteins in the meat, in the milk, they combine together and it becomes like an Alfredo sauce. It is so smooth and so delicious. So what you do then, you can toss noodles in that sauce and put a little grated Parmesan cheese, they buy it in a piece, and freshly grated over the top. When it does, the hot sauce sends the aroma of the cheese up, which is very satisfying. And you can sort of kid yourself that the thing looks just like an Alfredo sauce, and its texture is the same. So I love to saute vegetables, and I make that sauce and put it in ice cube trays. So it's I can take 3 ice cubes out of a plastic bag and throw them into the stir fry instead of adding a sauce or cream or butter and that sort of thing. I have a little olive oil which I saute it in, and that is viscous in the end, and it coats it, and it sends back bright little sparkling highlights. And I just love sitting and eating that. It's a joy. With I only bought a quarter of a pound of good Parmesan cheese and have got a little hand grater. And I grate a little cheese over these kinds of dishes, and that satisfies my cheese need. Because I too feel that cheese is so good. Isn't it wonderful?
This is amazing. Like, I love being able to make this connection between what feels like I mean, different parts of the state that we live in, different generations of this world that we live in, completely different experiences. Talking with you specifically about something that I'm really interested in. This has been an amazing conversation about reducing meat consumption, increasing plant consumption, not only for our personal health, but also for the environment and for the animals, and balancing all that out. I'm so grateful that this is something that you and I both have the privilege of being able to talk about and being able to implement in our own lives. And it's been an amazing conversation. So we'll move on now to your idea for this episode that we'll think about and then talk about next week. So what do you have for us, Graham?
Okay, well, I'd just like to step across the line in a very short way, because I'd like to stay with the plant thing and stay with the change thing and think about how we could actually consume a little less, especially of those things that may not be most advantageous for us, and to to actually quantify that in some way, in dollars and cents, to find a way to be able to say, instead of spending $10, I'm going to spend $5. And having saved $5, which I would ordinarily have put into my own system with a possibility of a risk there, I'm going to take the risk out and turn that $5 into a gift for someone whose life itself is a question mark. Somebody who is so much at risk that my $5 could make a lot of difference. So I get to benefit, and so do they. It's kind of a double benefit idea. And I even came up with a word for that at one stage, which was outdulgence. Nobody liked that. They had to think too much about it. But I said, indulgence is something that could mal-affect me. It could be malnutrition for me. So if I go outdulgent, I'm actually giving it out of my life to someone else. And then what was negative for me can be positive for them. So anyway, but there we go. We don't have to worry about words. What we could ponder is, and I want you, because I know you're on a tight budget, and I'm on a tight budget too. So let's see what we could do to work on the idea of the budget in order to have less difficulty for me and more opportunity to be able to share my life with someone else.
Absolutely. Maybe instead of buying that bag of potato chips I've been craving all week, I could use that, $4.50 for good somewhere else.
Well, don't cut out everything or anything. The idea should be that we consume a little less of something. Potato chips are a good example because they are salted and they put citric acid on it as well, a little lemon juice in crystalline form, so that one leads to another. It's like perpetual motion. And the thing is, whether we're able to say to ourselves, there's 40 chips in the bag and I'm having 20. And then the bag gets clipped together and put into the cupboard. I'm not going to eat it all at once. And so I'm not going to get 2 bags next time I go to the store. I'm going to get 1. I need to think about this all week as well, so that it doesn't become legalism. If it becomes legalism and I think I'm a nice person because I'm doing it, then I think I failed. I think I can feel good about sharing my life with somebody else, but I think I shouldn't be telling the world what a nice person I am because I'm doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. We are very privileged to be where we are, and there are a lot of people in the world who don't have as much of that. So if there's anywhere where we can take some of that and share it with someone else, and it's a positive health impact, like That's amazing. That's such a good concept. Like,
It's called win-win.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Can I just say this to you? I do recognize that there is a big amount of time between us, but I'm so enjoying these conversations. They mean a great deal to me. Thank you.
Me too. Absolutely. And I don't have a lot of people in my life in your age bracket. So it's fascinating. And it's good. I mean, it's good to learn from your elders. Yeah. All right. So that's what we'll be thinking about this next week. And we'll come back next week to talk about giving up a little thing and giving it, paying it forward, and having that be a win-win, a double, a health benefit and a benefit for those around us in more need than we are. So we'll get back to you next week having thought about that, and we'll talk about it some more. Again, this has been Tea at 3. I'm Faye Schmidt. This is Graham Kerr. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.